Well, Republican and Democrat didn't mean a thing in those days. Didn't know a thing. Roosevelt was a big thing in that
Cody
time.
says it still doesn't mean anything.
Shouldn't it? Anyway, getting back to this, I think we ought to call us not the United States of America, the divided states of America. That's what we are. We
right.
really are a divided states of America. That really is a more true name.
It's okay that you make a mistake because we can do it again or edit it out. So don't worry about the mistakes.
I won't make any mistakes. I don't know what I'm making a mistake on. Although I found out to my birth date, I don't have a birth certificate and I can't find it. But I do have a baptism thing. And it says I was born on December the 26th. But I'm sure the 20th is my birthday. They made a mistake. But it says on there, born on December 26th.
The Catholic Church made a mistake?
Yeah, it's a mistake.
And tell us how the name came out. How did Les and Grace decide on how they named you? How did the name come about?
Oh, well, we were Catholics. And the Archbishop there was Archbishop Glennon. So I was named after him. So my name is really Glennon, not Glen. But all of my official things gives me William Glenn. Now, William was the name of my grandfather on my mother's side. So that's where I got the name William Glennon.
Okay. And your mom's last name was?
Fry.
Fry.
Mm-hmm.
And
she had two sisters. And one of the when she was about 8 years old, my grandmother caught fire and burned to death by a stove, a kitchen stove. So my mother was about 8 years old, so she became the mother of the family at 8 years old. And there's another daughter about a year younger than her, and then another daughter. And some relatives picked up the youngest daughter, and she went on and did well in life. And the other was Anne Blanche, and she had about 6, 7 children. And they're all dead now that I know of. And I can't think of relatives that's alive right now.
And Blanche lived in Monroe City.
Yeah, this is all in Monroe City. And Zelma and Uncle Guy, who was Mac's brother, was at Monroe City. Okay. So everybody was in Monroe City.
Who was the other sister?
You see, at that time, that was the time the railroads went on strike. And the union went out on strike. And my dad, with 3 or 4 other guys, evidently had a car, drove up there and went in as a scab. And that's the way Dad went to work for the railroad and worked there all his life. And then they couldn't drive back and forth, evidently, so they bought a house up there in Hannibal. Yeah. And Dad rented the upstairs to 2 or 3 men that was riding with him. So those men all lived in that great big house. We lived there for a year. And then he bought 10 acres out on the farm, and we lived there for, about 10 or 15 years.
Now, was that Hannibal or was that Monroe City?
Huh?
Was that Hannibal?
It had all this in Hannibal.
It was outside of Hannibal.
Yeah, so once we moved there, I was in Hannibal all the time.
West Ely Road.
West Ely Road is where the 10 acres was.
Let's talk about West Ely Road. Tell us about the house. Tell us about this.
Well, the house had three rooms, a kitchen, a living room, and a bedroom downstairs, and 2 rooms upstairs. The girls and the folks all slept in one bedroom, and me and my 3 brothers and my grandfather slept in the other one. They weren't very big rooms.
So how many people?
Oh, God, well, at that time there was 7, 8, 9, 10 people in the family, 7 kids. And see, when Dad first got married, they had a child, and he died.
That was John.
6, yeah, Gerald.
Gerald.
He died at about 6 weeks, I guess.
What did he die from?
I don't know, and I don't even know where he died. I think he died going to some west. Anyway, 2 more sons were born before me, John and Arnold.
Right.
They grew up to be about 17 years old. John had ruptured appendix, which Chip had. Then you couldn't do anything about it, so he died at 16 or 17 years old. So that left John and me. The next year, John was killed in an automobile accident. So the first 3 sons were all dead, and I was the next one coming up. and they was always waiting for me to go. Here I am, 93 years old, and everybody
Tell us about the sisters.
About who?
Your sisters.
Well, we had 3 girls. Geraldine. See, Gerald died, so I guess I called her Geraldine after him.
Sure.
She was the oldest. She was a singer. She sang quite well. In fact, she sang with the multi-opera down in St. Louis for a period of time.
And she was a beautiful girl, wasn't she?
Huh?
She was very pretty.
Well, I think so. But she came back to Hannibal and married Glenn, another fellow, and they had some children. And then Catherine was born. And Catherine had tough luck in the first marriage. She got remarried, and she had one.
Was also. I remember her as beautiful.
Huh?
I remember Catherine as a beautiful woman.
She was a real nice looking. She was real a good gal. She took care of herself all the time. And then Pauline was kind of a scatterbrain, and she married a guy who later became a vice president in Kruger, and they got a divorce, and she was left with raised 3 boys, 2 boys and a girl, and they're all living and doing all right now, but they're divorced, and she's dead, so they're all dead.
But that whole group was living on West Ely Road in the 3 rooms.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then one morning, I used to keep all the clippings. I used to have a clipping in the paper. It was always boxers or a baseball player or football, and I cut them out every day religiously. And I had a whole thing full of them, just stacked full of them. There was a little attic just off of my bedroom, and I'd stuffed those back in there in the attic, just loads of them. Well, what happened one hot day, it must have been a hot day and hot night, we were sitting at the breakfast table, and the friends from down below us come running up and said, the house is on fire. Yes, it was. It was right there where this attic was. What happened, the papers got fire from the combustion, and that house burnt right clear to the ground.
Because of the
fire.
And your collection.
Huh?
Because of your collection.
I think so, because that was about the only thing in there, and there was a box, just a cardboard box with a whole bunch of loose papers. It was so hot, I don't know what else could have caught fire.
What were the papers again?
And
so explain what you collected. What kinds of things were you collecting?
Well, I forget what they call it. They had a name for it. But every day in a sports page was a little square thing, and it had a picture of an athlete. A lot of baseball, and I remember them.
Name some.
Well,
Jack Dempsey.
Jack Dempsey, Gene Tooney.
Dizzy Dean.
Bottomley, my favorite baseball player. Just all, but those old names that you wouldn't know
Dizzy
very
Dean.
much. Huh?
Dizzy Dean. Dizzy Dean. Dizzy Dean.
Dizzy Dean. Oh well, yeah. That was after that.
Frank Frisch.
Yeah, that was before then.
The Gas House Gang.
This happened before that.
Okay.
The Gas House Gang. Yes. Oh yes. I can name every one of them probably.
Who was the manager?
Wilson. Wilson, I think, was the manager. Jim Bottom played first. Frankie Frisch played third. Gilbert played shortstop, and they had Chick Hafey in the outfield, and Ernie Arsotti, and 2 catchers, Jimmy Wilson, and
the Gas House Gang was the infield.
Huh?
The Gas House Gang was the infield.
That was the Ganville.
The whole group was Gas House Gang.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And where did the
the guy at third base, he didn't ever catch a ball. He just knock it down with his chest and pick it up and throw him out.
Is that Medwick?
Joe Medwick is after that time too. After that, Joe Medwick and those guys came later. The fire had burned down by that time. These are old.
Cardinals.
Oh, this had to happen in about 1930, late 30s.
Where did the name the Gas House Gang come from?
I don't know. Just the way they played ball, I guess.
Just
Gas House
inspired
Gang.
kind of.
Yeah.
And this was the Cardinals.
This is what?
The Cardinals.
Cardinals, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the West Ely Road. Tell us, was there inside plumbing? Inside plumbing?
No, it was outside. And when I slept in the bed with my younger brother, and very often he didn't get up and go to the bathroom.
Clark.
It's Clark. So I had to lay over the edge of the bed, stay out of it, and I think he went to bed all the time, and my mother had to take care of that. It was just one of her chores. She was a slave practically, trying to keep that house clean and all those kids and keep them healthy.
Did you have central heating?
No, no.
How'd you heat the house?
We had a big stove in the living room and the kitchen stove. That was our heat.
2 stoves.
And didn't have any lights.
Wood stove.
Wood stove. Yeah, later on we had some coal, I think. But first it was wood, then coal. We didn't have electricity.
No electricity?
No.
What kind of lights?
Lamps.
Fire?
Lamps, like I got one over there, I guess one sitting there somewhere.
But I mean, you'd light a fire to it.
Yeah, like that, see? Everybody had a lamp, I guess. We had in a bedroom, we had to light a lamp so we go to bed.
So no electricity.
No.
No telephone.
No telephone.
No.
Later on we did, though. When we rebuilt the house, when it burned down, we rebuilt it. Pretty nice home. It's still there. And it had a basement. It had a basement. We had a furnace. We had electricity. We had a phone. We had all the... But before that, we didn't have any of those things.
Did you have inside plumbing?
Then, yeah.
You did?
Yeah. Wait a minute, just a minute. No. We didn't have indoor plumbing. I don't think that got after we left. We still hauled water in and out, but we had electricity.
From the well?
Huh?
You had a well?
Well, yeah.
And you'd bring the water in from the well?
A lot of stuff, Mom, we didn't have the refrigerator like we have now. So they'd put stuff in a bucket and lower it down in the well to keep it cool, keep it from sour and things like that.
Right.
We had chickens. We had a couple of hogs that Dad butchered every year. We had a couple of cows, sold some milk. We had a horse to pull the plows and grow the garden.
And you had a plow?
Oh, we had one plow.
Went behind the horse?
One plow, and you had to hold it. And a man walked behind it, and the horse would pull it. And then after he plowed it, then we had a harrow thing with the thing sticking down, and then he'd harrow it, and that's where you got the ground ready to plant stuff.
And then you'd
hand planted.
Hand planted?
Yeah, and hand picked everything.
And you grew all of your own food?
Huh?
You grew all of your own vegetables?
Everything except salt and sugar and things like that.
Did you have fruit, apple trees, or?
We didn't have a fruit tree on the place. I don't know why we didn't, because that's really something to have. Everybody should have some fruit trees, especially at the price they are now.
But yeah, and you had 10 acres. Was it all planted?
I'd say about 1/5 of it would enclose the house and the planting. The rest of it was pasture land, and we had a creek that ran through there, and there was always a little place washed out that we could call a swimming hole. It was only about knee high most of the time, but that was our swimming hole. Now there's a road, a highway that goes right across the top of that, right over where we used to swim.
Okay.
Kidding. This place is still there though. There used to be a blacksmith right there, right behind where we used to go swimming. We used to go watch that blacksmith hammer away at things.
And you had a baseball diamond then.
I made my own baseball diamond.
Explain that one.
There was a little place beside the house, and I made a backstop. I dug out base paths all the way around, and I hauled sand from down in the creek. I walked up with buckets of it to fill the sand places. I fixed the pitcher's mound. Nobody ever played on it, but I built it.
You did?
Well, I'd get up and throw corn cobs or a rock and hit them myself. And if I hit a long one, it'd be a home run. But corn cobs and rocks were my ball. But nobody ever played on it but me. And I did have, I made a jumping area where you could jump over it.
Over what?
Over a high jump.
Oh.
And I was going to try vaulting. So I went down and got me a willow pole, cut it out, and put me something up there about 6-7 feet. And I went up on that damn thing. I got up to it, and the damn thing broke. And I'd been over it once before, and my friend Henry Clay, who was the neighbor of ours, was going by and told him to watch me. I was going to jump. So I got up there, and the darn pole broke down my shoulder. And they laughed, but I didn't because it hurt.
And Henry Clay lived close?
Henry Clay was just a next door neighbor almost.
Neighbor.
And he was the first friend I ever had. And he was a lifelong friend.
He was your age?
Huh?
He was same age as you?
He was just maybe few days older. His dad was one of the guys that went out on strike.
With Les?
My dad went in as a scab. So they never spoke to each other.
Oh.
Mr. Clay finally opened up a gas station down in just at the edge of town, and Dad bought gas for him, but they wouldn't talk to each other.
What were some of the adventures?
Yeah, well, tell us about the kinds of things you and Henry Clay would do, or anybody else that was around there.
Well, Mr. Clay did well on his service station, and he brought a lot across the street. It was an empty lot. And we used to play kickball and touch football over there a lot. When I played football later on I've been through high school and played some football there. But well, later on I went to junior college and was a tailback on where you had to kick and punt and run.
Right.
So I was the tailback on the junior college team.
And the name of the college was?
But the only reason I could do that was because for years we'd been playing touch tackle and kickball over in that lot. And we'd kick the ball back and forth, try to kick it over the line or try to run it over. And we did an awful lot of kicking and an awful lot of passing. I learned to pass and kick the ball. And I can kick the ball pretty well. I can kick a ball 50 yards, right, hands down. And I could pass pretty well on the run because that's the way we had to do it. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason I made the football team is because I made it over there. Mm-hmm. When I got out there, I couldn't do that in high school. But
there was no football team in high school?
No, I played football, but I couldn't kick as well, and we didn't pass in those days. Mm-hmm. You didn't pass in those days, so you didn't have to pass. You just punted and run. Mm-hmm. So. Did
you have helmets?
I had helmets, yeah.
Did everybody have helmets?
Well, they weren't just a piece of leather, and you keep your head warm out. But we played Quincy Academy one day.
And your high school was McCooey?
Yeah, we went to McCooey, and we played Quincy Academy. They had a football team.
Which is also a Catholic school.
He was Catholic. And this big guy lit on my head, and the helmet didn't help a bit. Didn't help a bit. I just took it off, and I never wore them again. I just played without a helmet.
In high school?
Yeah.
Did you use a helmet?
When I was in junior college, when I had a helmet that helped in junior college. But I took a shoulder pad and took all the padding off of it except right here at the shoulder so I could pass better. So my shoulder pad was just a piece of leather that fit just over my shoulder there. That's all. Had some hip pads. Yeah. But it wasn't very good equipment.
Yeah.
When I played there the first year, the next year I decided not to go back to college. The first game they were to play was over in Jacksonville College. So Henry and I rode out to the college, and we was going to ride over and watch the game. One of the guys, I forget his name, asked me if he would talk to the coach, and would you come back to school? If he let you play, would you play? I said, yeah. So he went to the coach and said, Osbourne said he'll come to school Monday if he can play. Okay. So I did. I went over and played the whole damn ball game.
Before you enrolled?
Hadn't enrolled yet. Later on, when we visited down to the college, remember? Yeah. I told the coach that.
Right.
I said the rules are a little bit different than they are nowadays.
Right.
Very loose.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
A ringer.
Say again?
A ringer,
right. Now, this was before television or anything, but you had a radio at home?
Yeah, that's what I listened to baseball games on. I'd have to get my ear about that far to it, and I'd sit there the whole damn game, my ear pinned to that thing, cracking and popping. Once in a while I could make out something, but you couldn't hear it very well.
And you'd listen to the Cardinals?
Cardinals. And or if it's a boxing, I watched Jack Dempsey and Tooney a lot, but football, pro football, wasn't anything then. The Celtics were just beginning to operate about that time. It wasn't on radio. The only thing sport there was boxing and baseball. That's about all it was. Wasn't anything else on.
And they were all white folks.
Huh?
They were all white. The players were all white.
Oh yeah. I've never played with a black guy. Never have.
Tell us about race.
When I was in Hannibal, when I moved to Hannibal, there wasn't no blacks. The blacks had their own school. They had one building, and from
outside of town,
just at the edge of town, on the lower part, bad part of town, and the high school and everything's right there. No black kids at all. And I don't remember when the first black kid played, but it's long after I got through there. So I've never played with a basketball, but I coached a lot of black kids.
Mm-hmm. But the Cardinals at the time had no black players.
No.
The Boxers didn't fight any black fighters.
Oh yeah, there were black fighters though.
Who?
Oh, what are some of those guys? Fitzgerald was one. The champions.
Jack
something.
Jack. No.
Yeah, but they had a couple of black champion boxers. I don't know just how far back that goes, so it may not have been then. I may not have been able to fight. I don't know. I doubt it. I bet it was afterwards, because the blacks just didn't have.
Did Dempsey ever fight a black guy?
Huh?
Did Dempsey ever fight a black guy? Jack Dempsey?
No, I don't think he ever.
I don't think he did.
No, that was a controversial fight. But Dempsey was a boxer.
A slugger, wasn't he? A slugger?
Dempsey was a slugger.
Tooney was the boxer.
Tooney was a boxer.
Yeah.
No, Tooney didn't knock anybody out. He won on points always. But he retired undefeated.
As did Dempsey, right?
Huh?
And Dempsey did too, right?
No.
Dempsey got beat?
Dempsey knocked him out. Didn't knock him out, he beat him. That was a big blow up. But
let's talk about cars.
Cardinals?
Automobiles.
Automobiles. Oh, well, I guess
what's the first automobile you remember?
I guess the first car is when they went down on strike, when they drove from Monroe City. I don't know what kind of car it was. And my mom drove it one day when it was in Monroe City, and she ran it right through the garage door. She didn't drive it anymore.
Was this a Model T kind of thing?
Oh, it's farther back. It was a Chevy, I think, but it was an old thing. When we lived out on West Needle Road, that was several years later. When we went to Monroe City, the roads weren't paved. It was just gravel road all the way to Monroe City. And there was no heat in the car, but they had things they'd put up on the side. And if we'd go up there at Christmas time, you'd about froze to death going and coming up there to Monroe City. The whole bunch of us would pile in the back, one on top of the others, to keep warm, to get to get back home. Cold as hell. And flat tires.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how we lived through all that.
But the family had a car once.
Well, then see, the first cars began to use about 1900, when they first started using cars. But when I was in there, when there was some electric cars around, a couple electric cars, real wealthy people owned them, and they said at that time that they would have a battery that would run a car 100 miles. Well, they're still working on it. They haven't done it yet. But they finally just brought it by the wayside because gas was so much better and so much cheaper. It's too expensive. You had to make them just one car at a time. You couldn't afford to buy them. We had a creek that run through our place out in 10 acres. And these guys would come with a wagon, 2-horse wagon, and load her up with gravel and take it out and put them on the roads. That's the way they kept the roads going. But they got a lot of the gravel from where.
But people traveled back and forth on a horse?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it was. You didn't see a car too often. When winter came, we lived on a road on a hill.
Right.
We used to slide down that all winter long. We didn't have to worry about cars because when any cars coming and going. I lived about a mile from a country school where I went to school. And I went in there when I was in the 4th grade. And when you went in there, a newcomer had to prove himself. It wasn't a very big school, but you had to prove yourself. And I had an older brother who was in 8th grade, and Henry had an older brother who was in 8th grade. They tried to push us into fighting each other. And that went on for a week, but
You and Henry?
You and Henry. But we didn't want to fight, but they kept trying to get us to fight. On Friday, they took us down to the outhouse. There's a toilet, and it had a board fence around it, so we couldn't see it. The girls had one. So we went in there. They finally got us to wrestling, and about the time he got me down, here come the county superintendent driving into the car. Of course, the county superintendent was the President of the United States. We thought he would kick us out of school if he caught us doing something.
Yeah.
So they stopped that right now, got us cleaned up, and got us out. From that time on, Henry and I were the best friends, budding friends. But the reason we got in a fight was that I had written a note to a girl I thought was real pretty, and he turned it in to the teacher. Oh. And the brothers thought that was a good enough reason that I should hit him. He couldn't get it in. But we finally got to wrestling. That's about as far as to go. But yeah, I've known him all my life. He's my lifelong friend.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So basically, horses were the main mode of transportation, and some people had some cars.
Oh, and more the cars come in, I guess.
But there were railroad trains.
Huh?
There were trains, railroad trains.
Yeah. Oh yeah. These eventually, after we moved out to West Needle Road, the guys in Monroe City were going back and forth every day to work from Monroe City. So whenever I wanted to go up and visit my friends in Monroe City, I'd go down and meet them on the way home, and they would take me and drop me off, and I'd visit. And then I'd ride back there with them, the same place, and then walk home. So I hitch a ride with them whenever I wanted to get to Monroe City. I always said I was going back to Monroe City and pick chickens. We had a big chicken place there. They picked chickens. Oh. And that was my ambition, to get back to Monroe City and pick chickens. Never got to do it.
Did you ever ride the railroad train when you were young?
About the only time I rode one, a couple times, when I was about, I don't know, I guess about 18 or something like that. Henry Clay had gone to San Francisco and was working in the World's Fair there. The World's Fair was out on Treasury Island. And he had a cart that he'd go, and he had to pay to get it, and they'd push that cart around, and people would ride on it, and they'd tip him. And they made pretty good money. People wanted to ride. They didn't want to walk, so they'd push these carts around. If he didn't want to work that day, he could go over there and sell it to some guy waiting to buy one, and that guy would push it. So I went out to visit him, and I was going to stay at the YMCA hotel. Well, so I got off in San Francisco. I walked up to Grand.
You went out on a railroad train.
Huh?
You went out on the train.
Went out on the train. Went across the bridge into San Francisco. I knew I had to get to Grand Avenue, so I had a big trunk I was carrying. Lugged all the way up to Grand Avenue, and I walked up Grand Avenue, and I couldn't find that damn hotel.
Up the hill?
Up the hill. Finally, I caught a trolley car going up the hill. So I got on that trolley car and rode to the top of that damn hill. Never did see the damn place. So I stayed on it and come back down. And I said, I was looking for the YMCA. He said, you walked right by it. It was just back off of Grand Avenue. I walked right by it. But it was up above. It wasn't down below. You had to get up above to get to YMCA. So, and on the, so I got back there and I got to it. Then later on, I was going with Henry on his run with his toy. I walked with him sometimes. And there was a bunch of girls dancing, and I took one of them home, one of these girls. And she had to go up Grand Avenue again. So up we went up on Grand Avenue. I took her home, got back at it, and I decided I'd walk back. And I got about halfway back, and here's some queer comes up and wants me to go to the room with him. I said, well, let's go to my hotel instead. And he was shot up and so on. And so we started walking down the hill more, and here come another guy along, and he got mixed up and started following him away. So I went on and got to my hotel room.
How long did it take to go from Hannibal to San Francisco on the train?
I don't have the least idea.
Must have been a couple days.
I doubt it, because it kept moving all the time. We only stopped 4 or 5 times, I think. It was quite a trip. That's the first time I'd ever been anywhere.
Did you weren't in a sleeping car or anything? You just...
No sleep. I guess maybe they had them, but I didn't know. I just had a pillow. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you went to San Francisco, were you still in high school? Was that a summer break thing, or was that...
What's that?
When you went to San Francisco, were you in high school still?
No, I was out of high school.
Oh, okay.
I was probably just out of high school.
Okay.
I don't remember whether it was after I went. It was before I went to junior college, Joe. No.
And you went to junior college for 2 years.
2 years,
And then you went to
then I went to Kirksville.
And you played football over
And then I dropped out of Kirksville and laid out a year. Then I decided I was going to Theli at the time, and I thought I was selling shoes. I'd been working at a drugstore, and then I worked in a shoe store. And I decided we could never get married on something like that, so I was going back to college. So I went back to college again. See, I stopped junior college, I stopped at college. So I went back, and I was going to finish up. And while I was there, I got into CPA, the civilian pilot training. I had to go to a little place and fly Cubs, but they did that to get flowers, so I was taking that training while I was in school.
At Kirksville?
Yeah, at Kirksville. And that's what got me into the Air Force, because when I went down to sign up, I didn't want to get in the Army, so I went to St. Louis to see what I could find, and when they found out I had 2 years of junior college, 3 years college almost, and I'd taken CPT, said, you ought to be in the Naval Air Corps. So I said, okay. So that's where I went. I went to the Naval Air Corps and ended up in the Marines. One day, the second year, I was out there.
At Hannibal LaGrange?
After I went back the second time.
To the
junior college. I was coming home with a guy from basketball practice, and he wanted to stop by at the Ritz. Cause
what's the Ritz?
The Ritz was a little place where they danced and had beer. And
a nightclub.
It was sort of the place where all the junior college kids changed. They hung out there just off campus.
Right.
And so we stopped in there, and I don't know why I went over to ask her. I didn't know her, but she was sitting in a booth with some girls, and I asked her to dance, and she said, well, yeah, okay. So we were dancing. He said, would you like to buy a ticket to a dance? She was selling tickets to some ladies' society. So they were having a dance. They had it every year. I said, yeah, if you'll go with me. She said, I'll go with you. So we went ever since then. That's where I met her. Yeah, if I hadn't stopped by the Ritz, I'd never met her.
And you started going together at that point, and that
and from there continued. On, we went together probably about 5 or 6 years before we got married.
And was Mom at junior college at that point? Was she attending junior college?
She came to junior college same time I did.
Was she a year younger than you?
Yeah, 2 years younger.
2 years younger.
Yeah. I laid out between high school and junior college a couple of years.
Sorry. Okay.
But that's the way I met her, and she was a beautiful girl and a wonderful girl. And I still...
And that was...
I still have her picture.
I know.
Right here.
And that was during junior college. And then you went to Kirksville.
Yeah, after that. That's when I decided...
But you weren't married when you went to Kirksville.
No, I hadn't been to Kirksville yet.
But I mean, you went to Kirksville before you got married.
When I went to junior college, I'd gone there 2 years. And Gene Hall, who was my high school coach, come up and said, I'm taking you to Kirksville. I said, what for? He said, I'm going to get you a scholarship. So he took me up there and talked that guy into giving me a football scholarship. So I got up there, and a friend of mine was shooting for the tailback position on junior college. We were both freshmen. No, well, I was going in as a junior, and he was a junior too. He couldn't punt and he couldn't pass, but he was faster than I was, and a little bit bigger than I. So it's quite a battle between us who was going to be the starting tailback. We had a scrimmage, and they divided the teams up. About the second time I carried the ball, some guy came across me and just tore the hell out of my ankle. That finished my football career there. I couldn't punt the ball. I couldn't run. I was on crutches for 2 or 3 weeks. I finally got back on the team, but it was too late. I never got to play football there.
You didn't play football?
Didn't get to play football.
I didn't know that.
No, didn't get to play football in Kirksville because of that. I would have. I probably would have started, might have, I don't know. I was in Kirksville when the war started.
Okay.
And I went from Kirksville to work in an airplane factory in Kansas. Mm-hmm. And
before you graduated?
Yeah, I hadn't graduated yet. And in this place that they had a big factory there, and I went there and took some riveting and became a riveter. And I played on the basketball team and the softball team. And when it come time for me to be drafted, they sent me notes about being drafted. So I got the letter here still. They wrote a great big letter how important it was that I stay there and do what I was doing. Which, well, they finally gave me a different job. They gave me a job as an escalator. I had a motorcycle and it's a cart on it, and I'd ride around town in these Cubs and see that all the stuff was moving as it's supposed to be. They could have done just well. Anyway, it didn't hold up, so they called me back. So I went back, got in the Marines, but they said, we won't take you until September probably. So I went back out there. The job was still open. So I kept on doing the same thing. So when they called me, then I come. And
but where did marriage fit in here?
Well, then I went back out there. And then I called Ellie and said that we could get married now because I don't know why. But I had a steady job. And so I came back, we got married, and we went there, and Ellie found us a nice home to live in.
In Kansas?
In San Diego.
Okay.
In San Diego.
But you got married in Hannibal, right?
In Hannibal, yeah.
And then you went out to San Diego with Mom?
Yeah. I was in the service out to San Diego, and we lived there, and then when I went overseas, well, she came home.
Tell us about the wedding. What do you remember from the wedding?
What do you think to it? The guys that we stood up with, the guy that married Joyce Moore was a good friend of Ellie's. And so the guy that was going with Joyce, his dad had some rich farmland. He was a pretty wealthy guy. Joyce had sort of hooked him. And they got married, and we stood up with them. So when we got married, they stood up with us. And we just went down to the priest's house, the four of us. We got married. That's all there was to it. Left the same day.
No church, no big ceremony,
no nothing. No flowers, no nothing. Just a ring. And when I was I'm trying to think how this happened. Oh, when I got in the Marines, the first time I went back out to Wichita again to work in this factory. Somewhere in there, I had bought some calves from Dad, 4 calves. I think I paid $20 a piece for them. So I still had them, about $40 for, about $40, $50 worth of calves, maybe 50. So I sold those calves somewhere in there and bought Ellie a ring. So when I come back, I offered her the ring. And she had gone over to another school to get some more schooling. And she said, I can't take it. And I said, why not? Another fella? Yeah, she had met somebody else. So I took the ring, stuck it in my pocket, didn't see her. Came back, went up to Iowa City.
To Iowa City?
I was at University of Iowa. That's where the cadets.
Oh.
So I went to Iowa City.
Okay.
Ellie called me and said, you want to come and see me? So she came up and we patched things up. I don't know how it happened. But I darn near lost her right there. Mm-hmm. But what they said, we was waiting for them to do something so we could go to war with them.
No excuse.
We knew we was going to go to war with them sometime, but we couldn't do it until they did something. Well, this is what they did. If they had done something else, it would have been better. But this is what they did. So now we could go to war. And when we went to war, of course, then England and all them, they declared war on Japan too. Mm. So it was Germany and Japan trying to, and Russia on one side and then the other. I was in college, and that's the reason when that happened, Roosevelt declared war on Japan, and then I went to Wichita, Kansas to work at a plant to get out of the war. I did everything I could to stay out. I didn't want to get in.
That was like me in Vietnam.
Huh?
That was like me in Vietnam.
Yeah, same thing. I went from Iowa City, where we didn't take any flying. You just took some information. Then we went to St. Louis, and I flew the little biplanes. Then we went to Florida. Can't think of the name of that damn place. And there we flew bigger planes. And I flew till I got my wings there.
Is it Pensacola?
Pensacola. So I got my wings there. And about two of my friends had decided they were going to not take them in the Navy. They were going to join the Marines. So they talked me into joining the Marines. So I joined the Marines with them. And that's how come I got in the Marines.
And you were married by this point, and then you went to San Diego?
Yeah.
As a Marine?
As a Marine.
So you weren't riveting anything in San Diego?
Huh?
You weren't riveting anything?
Oh, no.
You were a Marine?
No,
and you were flying?
I was on a base just north of San Diego. And when I married her, well, we got a house to rent.
And how long were you in San Diego before you went overseas?
Probably 9 months. And then I was sent overseas.
And how long were you overseas?
A couple of years.
Okay.
I left in 42 and came back in 45.
Talk about...
I went from there into New Caledonia.
Where's that?
Well, that's just west of Australia. New Zealand, just
out
south
in the middle of nowhere.
New Caledonia. And we flew up the string of islands there, and with the lot of fighting going on. We took in ammunition and supplies, and we brought out the wounded. And I flew up and down there for about a year. And then we left there and went up to Guam. And then left Guam, and Guam we fell down and into the Philippines for about a year. And I came home. But we were the first, we went into Guam, we were the first planes in Guam, first planes. In fact, we came into Saipan, which is an island just north of Guam, and we were supposed to land in Saipan. Got up there and there wasn't any airport there. In fact, the island wasn't secure yet. They were still fighting. And right across there was Leyte, a little island. They said you can land over there in a field over there. And went over there, and it was a hell of a... It looked like it had been an airport at one time, but you couldn't tell it was rough. And we made a couple passes and finally got down. And we stayed there for 2 or 3 days before we could get into Guam, because that wasn't secure yet. So we stayed there 2 or 3 days, and there were Japs still on that island.
In Guam or Saipan?
On Saipan and on Leyte, on that little island too. And these Japanese were starving. And they would try to slip into our camp and steal food. Every night you could hear shooting going on. Those guys trying to slip in to get food. So then we went into Guam, and we was on Guam the rest of the time. Well, there's a string of islands there. I forget the name of them. But...
is it the Aleutians?
It's just off of the Philippines.
Right.
We flew south out of there most of the time to a bunch of little islands down there. Once in a while we get over into the Philippines. One day we was in there and we were supposed to go to the Philippines. We were all set to go.
And who was controlling the Philippines?
Huh?
Who controlled the Philippines at that point?
Well, the hero there had just gotten back into the Philippines, just secured it.
The Japanese hero.
They kicked him out of there, and then he got back in there. So we controlled the Philippines.
We did.
We controlled the airport. If you got over there, you had to land, and you just had enough gas to get over there. If you couldn't land, so we got over there, and boy, the planes were flying around trying to get in because planes were taking off. You couldn't get in, and some general was raising hell up there because he was up under one of those airplanes, telling them to get. Finally, we got in, and we got rid of our stuff and got in and got back. But another time we were supposed to go over there, and they canceled our flight because there was a bad storm, and we lost 2 airplanes going over there that day. Luckily, I wasn't one of them. They canceled our flight before we got out there.
You told me one time about an occasion where you went out and got lost out there.
Oh yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, we were coming back from Bougainville. That was when it was down in Caledonia, and this guy he's a good pilot, but I was a pilot, he was a co-pilot. So and once in a while we'd trade seats, let him fly on that side. And so I'm not sure, but I think he was in his co-pilot seat. He said, "I'd like to fly a little weather. Is it okay if we go into this weather?" weather wasn't bad if it wasn't bad, so we did. God, we got in the damnedest stress you ever seen. Plane just went up and down and this way, and lightning right through the airplanes. You know, you couldn't see anything for 2 or 3 seconds after the lightning. You know, and wings were just flopping. We were in that for, I don't know, seemed like 15, 20 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. I don't know, but boy, it was the roughest thing I ever saw. Didn't have any headaches. We were just going wherever we could, you know.
And this was at night, right?
No, this is daytime.
Okay.
This navigator was having a hell of a time trying to figure out where we were going because he was the one going to get us there. Finally, we got through that, and we come into this one little island, and we had radio, and we got radio with them, and they said, yeah, we see you out there. And we were out here, and it kind of was just raining, but it wasn't storming. So we knew the island was over there, so we rode around and rode. We made a couple trips. We couldn't find the island. One day we saw a light. They had a light on it for us. We caught the light, so we went on by. We said, keep that light on. We're going to come back in. So we drove around, had to hope we hit it the same way because we couldn't see, raining. We come in, and by God, we landed. We got in. But the worst thing, the first trip overseas that we took, first time overseas, I went over as a co-pilot. If you had 35 hours, you could go over as a first pilot. But I didn't have 35 hours of training, so I had to go over as a co-pilot. So we were going over, and all of a sudden we started losing altitude. Couldn't keep up. We got down to 3,000 feet, and we were still losing altitude. We were headed for the drink, you know. Pretty soon, the motor took on again. So it started running again, so we went back up, and the damn thing started going down again. Couldn't figure it. And there was a doctor with it. He was about to go crazy because we were going in to drink, you know. Well, it looked like it, you know. Finally, we saw something here. We turned it on, and what it was, the thing that had the gas in it was starting to freeze up. And we got low enough, it was warm enough that it unfroze. So when it went back up, it'd freeze again, and down we'd come again. So we turned that on. It was a heater for I forget the name, but the heater. So we got up and we stayed where we were. And while we were flying over there, we kept seeing a light off to our right, left, big light. And we called a couple other planes we were going over too. We called them. You see that light off to the left? I wonder what that is. We thought, hell, that might be a Japanese plane. Hell, no Japanese with 100 miles. We spent anything. We kept watching that light. Finally, we found out it was a star. Our guy took his night on it. It was a star following us right over there. And of course, it was there all the time. But we were lucky to even get overseas. Then we were in Hawaii for about a month.
Before you came home?
On the way over.
Okay.
I spent Christmas in Hawaii. And we were there a month. And they had some ships that were down, so they were using our ships to do the things that their ships couldn't do.
And this was after Pearl Harbor?
After no, this is before Pearl Harbor.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. No. This is after Pearl Harbor.
I was going to say Pearl Harbor got us in the war.
Sure, it's after Pearl. Yeah.
Talk about how people viewed the service at that point in time. Today, how did people view the military and our participation? But today we're skeptical as hell.
Yeah, I am. I'm very skeptical of them.
But back then...
Yeah, I've never liked the Army. I have never liked the Army. I didn't like the Army life at all, and I still don't. No, there wasn't a bad thought there. It was positive, pretty much. They
thought they were doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's not like today.
And we had faith in the government?
Yeah, we had faith in the government. Roosevelt, sure they did. And the women got to go into work. And really, that's what solved the Depression, really. It wasn't what Roosevelt did. What Obama's trying to do is do what Roosevelt did. But that's not what solved the problem. What solved the problem was the war. Because our boys were going in the Army, the women had to do what the boys, and there wasn't enough people to do all the work you had to build ships and airplanes and all the work you had to do. There wasn't enough people to do it. Everybody was working. Even young people were working. There's so much work. Took us right out of the Depression.
And that put a lot of money into the system?
Oh, gosh, yeah. We had wonderful times after that.
Talk about Roosevelt.
Roosevelt?
Yeah.
He came to Hannibal one day, in Hannibal, there's a real high place up just to the south, and there's a light tower up there. And he came into town and turned that light on, and then he rode out past Ellie's house, and we stood up on the wall and saw him go by, and he was waving people. That's the only time I ever saw him.
But you had an impression of Roosevelt.
Oh, impression?
Talk about your impression of Roosevelt, how he affected things.
Well, we just thought he saved our country, but the war saved it really. But he had presidents are lucky. I mean, he was in a position, and everything worked out, so he became a wonderful president. Now, anybody in that position probably get into the same thing, but he happened to be the one. See, when things happen while you're in there, like Obama now is coming in with this terrible condition we're in. Now, that'll be remembered in history for a long time. The first black president, and we're in a depression as bad as the one we had before. Now, will he get us out of that? Will we get out of it? Will he do it, or will something happen? See, he's in a position where he can become even more famous than Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or he could be this, or if he doesn't.
And the thing is, it may last more than his administration. He may only be in there 4 years. If he doesn't get it done in 4 years, they're not going to reelect him. If he's doing better, maybe he'll get reelected. And but he has a terrible job. But he's the only man I know of who can do it. That I think I enjoy listening to him. I used to enjoy listening to Clinton talk. Anytime he talked, I listened. And anytime Obama talks, I listen. Because I can understand everything he's saying. He doesn't talk over my head, you know. I know. We were.
I mean, you were 15 years old.
Yeah.
14 years old in 1929.
Well, I was about 7 years old when the Depression started. 30.
That what made you 15 years old, right?
Probably, yeah, when it hit. But we were, even before that, we never, in fact, we were better off during the Depression than we were before the Depression.
As a family.
As a family. We lived in Monroe City. Dad was running a restaurant. We had enough to eat. We had a place. Moved to Hannibal, and he got a job working for somebody else. He could have been fired from it and so on, but running a restaurant, he was running a restaurant. It was his job. So really, he was better off. He had a business of his own, which people used. He had a job now where he depended, could he keep it? And I don't remember thinking myself as being poor. We didn't have anything. I never had.
But you always had enough to eat.
Always had enough to eat because we had a
grew
garden.
Your own.
Always had a big garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, always had enough to eat. Always kept warm.
Made your own clothes.
Oh, Mom made her own clothes. She made shirts, pants. Pretty much, she had to make pants. Well, we were barefooted most time.
Really? No shoes.
Barefooted all summer long.
You just didn't put shoes on.
Huh?
Just didn't put shoes on.
No, we had shoes, but I don't remember what kind they were. Christmas, one of the big gifts was to have boots that you laced up. That sometimes you got a pair of boots for Christmas. That
to accommodate the winter.
Huh?
To accommodate the winter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, in the summertime, you didn't wear too much.
Your impression of why the Depression occurred.
Well,
and you may not have had
I guess trying to break the Union was it. See, the Union went out on strike on the railroad, just like you're doing on the canal. Same thing. And they went on strike, and of course that put a hell of a lot of people out of work. And the people that come in probably took it for less money. So the railroads are probably better off after the strike because they were getting cheaper. And like guys working for General Motors, how much they make an hour. They got benefits and all kinds. The trouble is the union made the middle class in this country. But it demanded, it's just like everything else, power corrupts. They got too much power, and they just run themselves out of office almost by demanding so much. There should be they have health insurance, they have pensions, they have all this, and added on to their salary. That's good, but when it gets so the company can't operate under that, which they can, evidently, they can't operate with that load right now. Can't do it. So they're going to have to give a little so they can make a little profit. But they can't do it because they're operating at a loss now. So the union, it's just like social. I'm a socialist. I really am a socialist. But I don't think we can have a socialist country because eventually it'll get into communism. Power corrupts. And when the socialists get in control, it's a wonderful condition for everybody, but pretty soon somebody's going to get the power. Somebody's going to get it. And whether they're going to do it, it becomes communistic. Socialism is that people really do have a choice. Communism, the people don't have any choice. It's a tyrants. It's run by a group of people, like capitalism. Capitalism is worse than socialism because it's controlled by the powerful group, which it is. It's not as bad as communism, but it's borders on communism because it has a unit of power that the people don't have anything to say really. They try to through voting, but they're influenced by it so much and so much crooked voting and crooked politics. Politics is to gain power. That's all it is.
It's
not to serve the country.
Power, yeah.
I'm in here to gain power. That's what I'm in here for. I'm in there to keep my job, to gain power, make more money. That's what I'm in here for. I'm not here to do better for the country. Obama is the kind of guy that's in there to help the country out. He impresses me that way. I'm in here to make the country as good as I can. If I take less money, I don't think it'll make any difference to him. He just wants to do what's best for the country. That's the kind of people we want. But what happens, all of a sudden, if he turns and starts saying, "Oh, I've got this much power now, I'm going to start putting the pressure on," he could become a communist if you let it get a hold of him. And greed is an awful greedy thing. It gets a hold of a lot of people. People can't stand it. Now, I never thought of them as really inferior myself, but they were. They couldn't go to church. They couldn't go to school. They couldn't even go to stores hardly. Now, when I worked at the drugstore, it was right on the edge of the black community, and we did have a few blacks come in, but they always waited to be waited on. They never got up. If somebody else up there first, they waited to be waited on, and they were real good. But no, I never really thought of them as inferior. Didn't think much about it.
No?
Didn't think much about the black. They lived down in the slums, and that's where they were. And I remember one girl came in, was a pretty black girl. Grace was her name. I remember her, Grace. Real pretty girl. And I thought she was real pretty. I really was attracted to her. But never thought of going with her or anything like that. I just thought she was a real pretty girl.
Grandpa actually shot a black.
Huh?
Les actually shot a black man downtown Hannibal, didn't he?
Who, Les?
Yeah.
No, that was in Monroe City.
Oh.
And I think it probably was before he married, maybe. I don't know. But when the blacks come along, they got off of the street, and the whites walked by. Evidently, the blacks didn't get off the street. They got to be a little... And the black man got a knife out, and Dad took it away from him and stuck it at him. There was a big roar, and Dad had to leave town for about a week or two. Had to leave town because a lot of blacks in Monroe City.
Really?
He had to leave town for his own safety, because they'd been out to get him. He came back, and they forgot about it. I coached at Danville. Blacks were still blacks. When I moved to Burlington, I don't remember the first year I came here, but anyway, I had one of the guys that I liked about as much as anybody. Tony Baker showed up. One of the nicest guys you ever knew.
And a hell of an athlete.
A hell of an athlete and the nicest damn guy you ever saw. And I've run into some awful good black kids. God, good. I had an Osbourne kid that I really liked a terribly lot. And, well, there's a guy on the city council here, Thomas.
Gary Thomas.
Yeah,
right.
played basketball with. And, no, blacks. And Obama's convinced me that, you know,
I think you had a few other
there's
people.
a lot of good-looking black kids and good-looking black women.
You had some Sam Williamses and some Roger Blaylocks that would help change your mind as well.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And
you
some
guys
Larry
associated with
Woods,
them.
yeah.
And in fact, they come to our house.
All the time, right.
They come to our house and we'd give them ice cream. We'd say, you want some ice cream? They'd say, no. I'd say, Mom, yes, I do. She fixed it up. When I graduated, got my degree, Ellie and I came back, and I guess we moved.
You graduated after you were in the service?
Yeah, after. Yeah, I just had 1 year. I had to go a year.
Okay.
After that, and we had some money saved up because and I sent that money home to Ellie, and Ellie was putting it in the bank. So we had $2,000 or $3,000 when I came. So I had a lot of money then, and so we moved in with them, with her family, because there wasn't anybody else there, just us. And I think her dad was dead by that time, but her mother was living by herself, so we lived there. And
I remember Grandpa Richmond.
do you?
Yeah.
Well, must have died after. Anyway,
I mean,
very
vaguely.
I got a call from Bob Everett, and he's one of the guys that really turned my life around, because he called and wanted me to come up and look at the job. So I rode up there, and it wasn't much of a job. And I said, well, I'll have to talk to my wife first. He said, well, do you want more money? I said, no, I don't need any more money. I just need to talk to my wife. And Ellie said, you should have taken more money. Anyway, I come on and talked to Ellie, and I think Ellie thought we was going to Danville, Indiana.
Illinois.
Big place. But Ellie really liked it up there. People really liked Ellie. And it's a good place to raise kids, a little town. Everybody knew them. And I had real good luck in basketball. I had fabulous luck in basketball. So we were really accepted in Danville. And they really liked Ellie. Ellie made some awful good friends up there. We had a good life, and we had all three of our children there. It was probably the best time in my life, because I was having tremendous success in basketball. I had 3 boys, and Ellie was healthy. And she wasn't working. She was just having kids. But it was probably the best time of my life. Best time in my life, probably.
Talk about some of the players, the Wayne Wagners and
The what?
Your players. Talk about some of your players, some of your basketball players.
Oh, well, I think back at the good athletes I had. I think Tony Baker was one of my real good athletes. I'm not sure he was the best one. I think Steve Nelson was probably one of the best athletes I ever had. Now, that was here in Burlington.
How about Dansdale?
Well, I'll get back to that. But I think the best athlete, I think I had one guy there, Maine, Paul Maine.
Paul Maine,
It was
yep.
Dean and Paul. Dean was the older one. Paul was the younger one. Was a man, just a man. And he just could do things. In fact, he was really the star. Wayne came along, was a scorer, and did a lot of scoring. But this guy was just rebounded, he scored, he did everything.
He was the backbone.
He was just so head and shoulder. And I think probably he might have been the best athlete I ever had. But this Nelson was a hell of an athlete, too. Nelson, one day we had a track meet when he was a freshman. And I had him in different things, you know. And I had him he was in the pole vault. Big old and I run him in a couple of relays, and our guys had scratched out on the broad jump. They'd scratched out, they didn't make it. I only had 2 in it, you go up to 3. So I tell Nelson, drop the pole vault, go in broad jump. He went over on the broad jump. He's that good.
Dunnigan
Never did broad jump.
Said Dunnigan used to do the same thing.
You know, that's kind of the guy Dunnigan was. See, they could do about anything.
Oh yeah.
About anything. Yeah. And he could do about anything. He had, as far as doing anything, he probably could. Tony was a great football player. In fact, I told Tony at once that when you can make it in college in football, you'll never make it in basketball, because he was going to play basketball and drop football.
Right.
Well, he did. He didn't come out for football. Tack went down and got him. Went down and got him. but he wasn't going to play football.
Let's talk about.
And another one good guy had was I can't think of his name right now, but he was just one of the guys I respect about as much as I've ever respected a boy. I'll think of his name pretty soon. But anyway, he was playing football for the Horseman, and he was playing football for when we were down in the high school building. What's the name of that school?
Bracewell?
Huh?
Bracewell? Bracewell Stadium?
No, what was that high school building? It was a junior high. We called it something.
Oh, Apollo.
Apollo, yeah. I wasn't a football coach Apollo, but this guy played football. And he was just a strength in football. In basketball, he wasn't a great football, but boy, he could rebound. He just was that kind of a guy. If he had to get the rebound, he got it.
You're not talking about Richard Dansdale?
Who?
Dansdale?
Who?
Dansdale?
Yeah, Richard Dansdale.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a straight A student, one of the nicest guys you ever saw. And I think probably he would have to be right up there. I think about those guys. There's 3 or 4 guys like that just stand out in your life. And the 2 guys that influenced my life so much was Bob Everett's, because he did ever for when I was there. When I moved to here, Bob Fields was the other guy. He built our things in our house. He gave me a job in the summertime. We visited. Just those 2 guys had an awful lot to do.
Let's go back to Danville. Let's talk about Wayne Wagner and Arnold and all of those guys. Who all can you?
Well,
the Main brothers.
Yeah.
Lorne Keller.
Well, when I came to Danville, they won 2 ball games against a little team.
Your first year.
First year. When I came to Danville, we won 2 ball games the first year. Same thing. They couldn't hit a basket. They didn't know what to do. And Bob Everett was their coach. And lots of times he couldn't even be there when he was coaching because he had something else to do. So the poor kids were coaching themselves. But when I came there was some real good kids there. But they were all sophomores and juniors.
Name some.
Well, 2 main boys were.
Okay.
Charlie Neely. Those were the 3 main. Three mainers right there at the time. Now, not saying Don Keller helped my team a lot because they respected Don. Don sort of was the leader of that group. And he went along with me in everything in basketball. And even though we only won 2 games, the first year we were losing every game 20 to 30 points. By the end of the year, we were losing them by 10, 15 points. We were improving, but we weren't getting very good. So I had to find me a shooter, and I found a little sophomore named, I can't think of names now. Anyway, I made
Jerry.
Who?
Jerry with the glasses.
One I made the nose guard for.
Yeah.
And I made him my shooter, and he got to be a 20-point man for 2 years. So when he was a junior, he was my shooter, and we could get him shots, and he'd get 20 points a game. It was enough that I think we lost 4 games the second year and won the rest of them. From then on, we won 20 games a year every year. But he was one. And then, of course, we the main boys were getting the rebounds. And then when he graduated, then Wayne came along. And, of course, Wayne was a fabulous shooter. Scored 52 points one night. Scored 40 points twice. But he was a tremendous shooter. And then the guy to follow him would have been Jerry Evans.
Jerry Evans, that's who I was thinking.
Jerry Evans, a hell of a shooter, a little skinny, scrawny guy. But he could shoot the eyes. I think he's a better shooter than Wayne, probably. But he couldn't get shots like Wayne could. Wayne got shots from all over the place. He just didn't just let us use my stuff. He just got shots for himself. This guy we had to get shots from, but he could shoot them. He moved away. So I had to find another guy. And I got Donnie Schroeder. And he turned out to be a real good one. Not quite as good as the others. But I think Jerry Evans would have been our most deadly shooter. But he couldn't have got the points Wayne could because Wayne got a lot of pence on his own. I used to get after him. I said, hell, Wayne, you get the ball and go down and make a basket, and you don't even use our plays.
And this was before 3-point plays.
Before the 3-point plays.
So he was getting 40 and 50 points.
Oh, yeah.
Before 3-point plays.
From our Danville, the middle of the floor was probably about 25 feet out. He'd shoot in the middle of the floor. Yeah, he'd get the rebound and go down half court and shoot.
And this was before they had categories of you were playing the big schools.
Yeah, well, in those days you played in your own system until you got to the state tournament. Then they threw them all together. So the guys we played to get there were smaller schools. So we beat smaller schools. Some of the small Winfield went to the state several years in a row about that time. But no, then they threw us together, and we hit with the biggest school in the system. They only had one school in Davenport. Now they got 4. They only had one then.
Davenport Central.
So they had more kids playing basketball than we had boys in high school. So they had 9th grade. They had sophomore team. They probably had a junior varsity. We didn't have that many kids in high school. So I said, I didn't have any business playing them. I knew we didn't. So I figured they're going to play against.
You got to the finals, right?
Huh?
You got to the finals against Davenport.
We got to the final. We got beat the first game in the tournament.
Okay.
Davenport beat us. We played them the first game, and I figured it was going to be Wayne shooting against their. And so every shot was to get Wayne a shot, and we'd get that ball and we'd work and work until Wayne got open and he'd fire up. He didn't hit very well because it was an open field. You remember the old field house?
In Burlington?
No, in Iowa City. The old field house.
Yes, they do.
And
it was a big,
and
big
the floor was out in the middle.
Right.
So you weren't in an enclosed place at all.
Right.
And of course the pressure of Wayne, and then of course the different kind of shot. He just didn't hit too well that game. Yeah, I think he had 15 points, something like that. But he's used to making 20, 30, 40 points. But it was a big floor. Of course, on a small floor, you get more shots because you get down more now. But we did the best we could. They beat us about, at halftime, it was only 7 or 8 points of difference. Because they weren't hitting, lucky. But they started hitting the second half. But we got our rebounds. We rebounded. They took one shot. We got the rebound.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the people in Danville. Laura Bolick and Art Wagner and...
Well, Art Wagner was president of the school board, a real classy man. Laura Wolick was a teacher there, and we lived in her house one year, and then we bought a house right next to her house. So she was a real close friend of Ellie's, and of course Bob Everett's, and Al Burroughs was in there about that time, and Al Burroughs later became mayor of Burlington. Mixes, the Mix family, Bob, a lot of mixes.
Morris Mix.
Huh? Morris Mix. He was
the cop.
Yeah, he would take me to games to scout. Yeah, I had a lot of friends there. But basketball was a big thing. It was and it's been a big thing. This year they're kind of down. The last couple of years they've been kind of down. But.
So what year did we move to Burlington?
Huh?
What year did we move to Burlington?
54. 54.
Mm-hmm. And you were working at the high school?
No, I was teaching in junior college, high school, and assistant coach in basketball, and I assisted to TAC and to the basketball coach. Didn't like it. Worst job I ever had.
Who was the basketball coach?
Can't think of his name, but he's the guy that came there from.
Buck Cheadle.
Who?
Buck Cheadle.
Buck Cheadle, yeah. Liked him real well, but it was a poor job. I scouted, put football some, and never had much to do with coaching really. Didn't like it at all. So when Kenny Baker quit, took principal's job, the job opened up at Horace Mann. And so I took that, and I was tickled to death with it. And I enjoyed the coaching there. And I enjoyed it at Apollo because I was head coach. Mm-hmm. But the assistant coach is a poor job. Mm-hmm. Lousy job, really.
What can you comment on raising kids back in the 50s?
That's right. I can't imagine. I can't figure out how you guys come out so well. Ellie raised you kids. Hell, I was going. If I had a daughter, and I'd tell her not to marry a coach, because coach has to spend too much time. That has to be the most important thing he's doing. And Ellie just raised you kids. And I didn't have a hell what to do with it. But, boy, how you guys turned out as good as you do, I don't know. Another one of those miracles you talk about.
We stayed away from the cops.
Well,
somehow.
you stayed out of trouble. Well, we never defended you kids, and if you didn't get a good grade, we didn't give you a heck because you get a poor grade. We figured you were doing the best you could, and we just let you grow up. Hello.
And Burlington was a place
well,
you could do that.
I had you in Little League, and I had you in the things that I could do things with you, but we camped together. The camping was a big thing. We camped for years.
Remember that?
Sure.
Where at?
Where did we go camping?
Huh?
Where did we camp?
Where did you camp? In south of Dallas. What's that? Where we used to go?
No, in Colorado. South of
Colorado.
Denver.
South of Denver. What was that town?
Colorado Springs?
Colorado Springs. That was where we kind of went into. And then we went out west of there, and there was a campsite. And we camped. And Randy Weingard went with us one, you remember? And he had a television set with him in his car. He'd sit in his car and watch television all the time. And we'd all try to sleep in that tent together. Couldn't hardly get up to go to pee.
I remember sleeping outside a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I love sleeping under the stars.
Yeah, we enjoyed the camping out. We camped out a lot. And that's where Ellie got her start of trouble. We come back very late. We had gone out there. I guess we were staying in hotels at that time, motels. And she had something on the rear end here she wanted me to look at. It was a tick. So I reached in and I pulled the tick out, which was the wrong thing to do. What you should do is put something over it to make him draw his tentacles out. Suffocate him.
Right.
Then he'd draw his tentacles out, and then you take it out. When I pulled him out, it left the tentacles in her, and she got fever. Rocky Mountain scarlet fever. Mm-hmm. She became pretty sick, and I think that led right into her Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. If she hadn't had that happen to her, she probably wouldn't have had Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. But I think that's because from then on she never felt good, and for a couple of years she finally had to retire. And she retired when she was 60. I retired when I was 62 because I had to stay home with her all the time. Yeah. But,
how long did Mom teach?
Huh?
How long did Mom teach?
Well,
she didn't start teaching until we went into school, right?
She taught about 20 years in Burlington. And really, her salary was a big thing. It helped enable us to get you guys through college. I had my salary, but I don't know the way we could have put you through college like we did with just my salary. We had three of them because you guys were in college at the same time. But with her money, it allowed us, so really it was Ellie's money probably to put you guys through college. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when I retired, I visited Bob Everett. He was in Western Illinois then, had a job there. You were running a marathon.
Oh, at NIU, Northern Illinois.
Huh?
At Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
At Northern.
And I would go up and visit him, but then we went up to watch you run the marathon. And Bob came over to visit, and I said, Bob, I'm thinking about retiring. Ellie, I have to get back to Ellie all the time. I've got $100,000 with my house. And the money, I had $100,000. And with Social Security, I thought I could retire. I thought I could make it. Bob said, well, I think I can too. I said, I think I'll retire too. And he did. We both retired the same year. Bob bought a great big trailer, moved to Florida, then he went to Florida and stayed down there about legs started hurting. He got hurt more and more and more. Within a month, he was a dead man. Hannibal downtown was very much like Burlington. It had a Main Street, same place Burlington does, and the Broadway, the same way. But downtown was really it, and everybody gathered on Saturday night down there. The dime stores were there, and Saturday night, everybody came in, and it just crowded with people. Burlington never was like that I was here, when I was here. Downtown was there, and there were stores down there. The stores were all pretty full. And I've had people came down on Saturday some, but Saturday night wasn't like it was.
I remember being down there on Friday nights after football games, and Friday night was the big night. When Pam and I got married, we used to go downtown all the time. You'd see people, everybody you knew downtown.
Yeah. Well, I just never did go down much, I guess. I never thought of it like that. And now, you go downtown in the evening, it's empty. There's nothing. There's not much downtown now. The banks and it's the lawyers.
What stores do you remember from downtown?
Well, I remember Schramm's.
Yeah.
And the shoe store.
Brown's? What was it?
What's that shoe store? Brown shoe store.
Yeah.
I remember that store.
I remember Reapy Peterson.
Reapy Peterson's, yeah.
Johnson Rasmussen.
Johnson Rasmussen.
With the sporting goods downstairs.
Yeah. And J.C. Penney.
J.C. Penney.
And there were some restaurants down there. Yeah, I remember they was all occupied, but now most of it's empty. There's nothing downtown. There's nothing. You go out there, and sometimes you won't see a car for minutes or two. People going from one end of town to the other.
And why did that happen?
People began shopping at the malls. The malls moved in. Penny's moved out there. All of them are out there now. And we have a lot of discount stores between here and the mall. So they go out there to shop. They don't go downtown. If you're going shopping, you don't go downtown to shop. There's no place to shop. No clothing store, no shoe stores. There ain't any stores down there. There ain't any stores. Few restaurants down there. No stores. I can't think of a store down there. There's one outfit that sells decorations. It is, but it's just empty.
Your great grandparents?
What's that?
Grandparents?
Great grandparents?
His grandparents, I guess.
What do you remember? Do you remember anything of your grandparents?
No, I just remember that Grandpa Fry, Mom's dad, came to live with us after he moved out to West Ely Road. And he helped us a lot because he was sort of run the gardening affairs on. The boys take him out, and he was sort of the head man, tell us what to do and how to do it and so on. So he helped a lot. And Grandpa Osbourne was a tall man, pretty tall.
As was Les.
Huh?
Wasn't Les tall too, wasn't he?
Les was probably 6 foot tall, but his dad was taller than he was. He's a tall man. And I never saw him except when we went to Monroe City. And we'd go to their house, and he'd recognize me, and that's all. And I'd never see him again. And every time we went there, I'd see Grandpa, and that's all. That's all I ever saw him. And but I saw Grandpa Fry a lot. He used to play checkers with me all the time, and wouldn't let me take back a bad move. But I knew him pretty well. And he used to go to Monroe City about once a year to visit Ann Blanche, his other daughter, for a week and stay up there. And he went up there and got sick and died up there. And he was a Protestant all his life. But on his deathbed, he converted to Christianity, to Catholics. So they thought he was saved.
Now, somewhere down there was a Lee on Mom's side, on Grandma's side.
A what?
Lee. And
Lee.
Robert E.
Well,
Lee.
That's Mom's youngest sister. There's 3 of them. Mom, Grace, Ann Blanche, and Ann Goldie.
Ann Goldie, yeah.
And the Lee family took her and raised her. So her name, Goldie Lee, became
right.
Goldie Lee.
Right.
And eventually she taught school in St. Joe.
Joseph, right.
Remember, you stopped by and see her.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And she sent me those steel deers on the window there.
Yeah.
They got gold plating on them.
Yeah.
And I got it. She gave me those. And I've had those about 12 years. But I stick them in the window every year. And I was working at this drugstore, and I was making $12 a week, going with Ellie, $12 a week. And Delbert Hartley, the guy that stood up with us, had some money, and his mother was going. Another guy lived in their house with them. She sort of went with this guy, but it wasn't her husband. And he opened up this shoe store down there, and he and Delbert worked at the shoe store. And so they offered me a job down there at $15 a week. So I went down there, and I was working there at the shoe store when I decided to go to college. That's when I decided that Ellie and I'd never get married unless I got a decent job.
Well, what all was downtown, though? What?
Well, all J.C. Penney's and the
Downtown
banks are all there, and dime stores are there, all kinds of shoe stores.
What were the dime stores?
Oh, Kresge's. There was 2 or 3 dime stores.
Woolworths?
Yeah, 2 different ones. And I had a friend that I played football with in high school and junior college, Ray Campbell. And he lived out the edge of town. But he worked at the hotel, and he lived at the hotel.
Downtown?
In Hannibal.
Downtown?
Right downtown on the river almost. And he worked at the hotel. And on Saturdays, he worked at the dime store. And in between that, he went to junior college. Did all those things. And the darndest guy you ever saw. And he went into service. And the day he got out of service, he had a big party down at the hotel. And invited everybody, that his friends, because he had some money, I guess. And he ended up going to L.A. And he was a mayor of not Los Angeles, but what's a little town south of Los Angeles?
Burbank.
But he was the mayor there. And he came back to the reunion, came back in his airplane to the Union, and said he had a resort down in lower New Mexico that he flew to. Said, if you ever come to California, I'll take you down there. I never did get to California. But he was a go-getter. He's a go-getter, boy. There wasn't anything he couldn't do. And then he had his old sweatshirts, and you grab his shirt, he'd just run right out of the tight shirt. Pair him off, and they'd tear him. He just wouldn't stop running.
Playing football?
Huh?
Playing football?
Playing football. He was hard to bring down. You couldn't bring him down.
Now, Hannibal and Burlington in the Mississippi, how did the Mississippi play into your...
Well, we figured we had the best river in the world. It was there. It was just there. I never got on it very much. Bob Fields liked to fish a lot. And one day he had a cabin up on the lake up there. And he was going to build a cabin. So he took some logs, great big logs, must have been 15 foot long, square like that, great big thing. We had a great big boat, and he loaded them on a boat. And this boat, he pulled it with his motorboat. And I was sitting on top of him out in the river, was going up between these islands, and that damn thing, the water started coming over the top. I said, we better get over the side because we're going down the river. So he pulled over, and just as he got to about that much water, the thing hit bottom. So we're sitting on mud with this load of stuff. So we had to unload all that lumber, take it over to the land, pull it up, get it out of there, reload it again. And evidently we loaded it better. We probably lost some too. We finally got that up to his place, and he built him a cabin.
Well, I remember being out on the river with Weingard.
Well, I remember once, and I'll never forget this. Boy, this is something. He had taken our family and his family, and we'd gone up to an island up there. No, we'd gone up to the shore, and across from here was a small island. You could almost wade it. You could wade it. Your feet were on the ground all the way across. So I was going to take you and Chip across there, and I took you up on my shoulder and started walking across there. And I got to the other side, and I guess I brought you back, got you back. But I often think, if I'd slipped and fallen, because there was current, it was current here. If I'd slipped and fallen, you'd both drowned. And so I wrote a poem on that thing, and I said, I'll never forget the day that you put your hand in mine and expected me to save you. How much you trusted me. I said, I hope the day comes that you slipped your hand in the hand of the Lord, for we both find we'll have hands together. I wrote some kind of a poem like that. But I think of that, and it scares me. I still think of it. Still scares me sometimes. Because all I had to do is slip. I couldn't have caught myself. And there was a current, not a heavy current, but there was a current. But that was a stupid, stupid, stupid thing to do. To get by with it.
How would you...
The river was a dangerous place for people that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, without a doubt.
People drown there every year.
Yeah. Can you talk about the technological changes that you've seen over 92 years? What are the major technological changes?
The biggest thing is a computer. The television, of course, but the computer is the biggest thing. It's changed everything so much. What can't we do with a computer then? Damn, I don't know.
We can't get our economy on track.
Huh?
We can't get our economy on track.
Well, we can't keep up with the computers. The problem. Computers far ahead of us. There's so many things. There's so many things that hadn't been done yet. You know, if I wonder will ever come to the day when they'll be able to send you to California. Send you.
On light beams, huh?
Take a picture some way, and send you, and you'll be sitting over there. Send you. I wonder if that's in the future.
Well, they can do that
you
with
say no,
holograms.
but is it? I've often wondered. We won't be able to send a man anywhere we want to, on the moon if we want.
In an instant.
Yeah, just like that. How come you just had 2 children? Did you stop intentionally?
I don't think so. But, I mean, quite honestly, we didn't plan them either. We didn't intend...
Well,
we didn't plan 1 or 2 or anything.
Chip stopped at 1. I wonder if he stopped at 1.
It was not intentional.
Now, Ryan went to 3. Adam, Mac went 3. So but I remember when we had our 3, Ellie came to me one day and says, I didn't have my monthly. She thought she was pregnant again in Danville. I said, Ellie, you couldn't be. I've been awful careful. And that went on for a week or 2. But Ellie was pretty irregular at doing that. So it wasn't too bad because you had been irregular before. And then one day I come home. I must have been going over 2 or 3 weeks. And she was really worried. She didn't want another one, you know. She said I had my monthly. I said, oh, I knew you couldn't be. And we were real pleased that we didn't have a 4th one. Although if I'd had another, if it had been like you guys, I'd been satisfied. But it'd been another guy to put to college. We had a Buick coupe. And we had a jump seat in the back. And remember I built a board there and put a rug on it. And you guys rode there in the back seat, lay down. And you had a room about this big, 3 of you. You get fighting. I'd say, if I stop this car and you get back in there, you're in trouble. That'd stop it if I threatened to stop the car.
But we didn't have a television set.
Huh?
We didn't have a TV set when we moved to Danville. No TV when we moved to Danville.
No. We got TV about 2 or 3 years before we left Danville. And it wasn't very good. We'd get a basketball game. You could barely see the game. And Bob Evans used to come down. Remember, he used to come down, and we'd watch that battle. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't hear anything, but we watched it anyway. One day he come in, and he picks you up by your feet, and your socks came off, and you fell on your head.
Well, that explains it.
In fact, the amount of
I was mad about that forever. She didn't want to talk to Bob Evans ever again.
We stopped by to see him when we went up to watch our funeral.
Yeah.
And
this guy's a legendary
he had a
coach in Mount Pleasant.
He's got a
problem with his and had an operation. And I don't know how they're doing. But he was quite a coach up there.
Oh, yeah.
One year he had a year that they weren't scored on. Team was not scored on in 8 games. Didn't score.
Jeez.
That's quite a record.
Yeah. Talk about John Patrick.
John Patrick, one of my real good friends. That guy could get a jeer anywhere. He was coaching at New London. Couldn't win a game for hell because he posted everything. He had to step this way and he had to step this. Everything was You know, that's the way he coached, and he couldn't win anything. One night we were playing this basketball team, and they called a foul on one of their players. So Jerry Evans was shooting the foul, and John said something to the coach, so that's a foul on you. So John sat down, and John said something again. He called another foul. So he had 2 shots, and we had 4 free throws coming. John got up and walked on and started getting out there. Referee said, "You're out of the ball game." John says, "That's the best damn call you made tonight." But he left there and he came to Burlington. And he helped me coach the junior college football team, which was a lousy job. And then he went from there to Fairfield. Got a job coaching up there. John didn't have any luck coaching at all, but he got a job coaching. How the hell he got it, I don't know. And while he was in Fairfield, he got to know some people, and there was an outfit that needed an engineer. So this guy, John, why don't you drive a job? So I said, "I'm not an engineer. Well, you can handle the job." So he did, and he got the job as an engineer. He wasn't an engineer, he was a coach. So he took the job, and he was in it for about a year, and he decided he wanted to be back in teaching, so he applied for a job down in Fort Madison, and he got to be a head of a junior high school, principal of junior high school. Mm-hmm. Good job. Mm-hmm. He was there a couple of years, and he moved to Western Illinois to a damn good job. Every job he ever applied for, he got. Mm-hmm. He's the darndest guy to get jobs, but one of my best friends. Mm-hmm. John Patrick, some guy. John Patrick and Bob Fields and Bob Everts and God, Coach Gene Hall, those guys put me where I am now. Sitting on a chair and can't hardly walk.
Talk about Gene Hall.
Huh?
Talk about Gene Hall.
Gene Hall was a real good athlete over in a college by Kansas City. And he loved coaching, just loved coaching. And he coached 1 year when I was in high school.
At McCooey.
And
at McCooey.
Yeah. And he smoked and drank. Drank coffee till go out of style. And once in a while he'd bring me home, and we'd stop by, and he'd drink 2 or 3 cups of coffee. And then he'd drive me home. And sometimes he'd sit there talking. I'd go to sleep. He'd be talking to me. I'd go to sleep. But he did that. And he raised trees and trees mostly, nursery. And he ran a nursery what he did. But he loved athletics. Loved athletics. And really, I have to give him credit for taking me up to Kirksville, because if I hadn't gone to Kirksville, I wouldn't have gone to college. Mm-hmm. So he's one of the men that changed my life.
Talk about Sparling.
Who? Sparling.
Big Ed.
Oh, I liked him because he did so much for you and Chip. He really got Chip his job down there, and he got you your jobs. He really did. I owed him an awful lot. You read that article I wrote to him? I read that every once in a while.
What do you remember about Big Ed?
Well, he was just Sparling. There's only one Sparling, I'll tell you. He done things the way, like I said, he didn't want the people to get on his players. He'll get on his players, but he didn't want the people to get on their back. But he got on his players plenty hard, but he didn't want the people getting on him. If you're going to get on him, get on me, and they did. But he was a character, real character. His dad, didn't he? Mm-hmm. His wife, dad, too? Mm-hmm. He was a real character. Mm-hmm. So many people that influence your life along the line, And the longer you live, the more people affected.
Who would have influenced Mom?
Huh?
Who would have influenced Mom? Who influenced Mom?
Well, Joyce Moore was our best friend. There was 2 or 3 girls that she ran with, and they were among the girls that didn't. So the boys that dated him,
Cody understands
if they got a kiss, they were pretty lucky. And Henry got a date with her before I went with her.
With Mom?
With Mom, Ellie. He said, "I bet I get a kiss." He didn't. But I got to catch the first night, I think. We fell in love that day. I got a poem on that. I've written poems on it. I'll see them sometime.
Yep. You got an encyclopedia of poems there. Talk about Grandma Richmond.
Her husband
George
was a machinist. He made if a machine broke down, he could make the parts for it. And he lived. He did his work in an alley and right behind the whorehouse. There's a whorehouse right
in Hannibal.
In Hannibal. And he was a good worker and a good machinist, made a good living for him. But then I think he started having a little trouble mentally.
Really?
And he started carrying a gun around, and that worried a lot of people.
I hadn't heard that.
And I think he got to visit another lady, too. And Miss Richmond knew all these things. And she was really a nice lady. And he finally died, which was a blessing to her. And
did he die of cancer? Is that right?
I don't know what he died. I think a heart failure or something like that. But he died. And then Miss Richmond lived on, and then she got sick and had to go to the hospital. And we were in Danville at the time. And we'd come down and on weekends several times and go over and see her. And I think it's during the summertime. And we come down and stay for 2 or 3 weeks while she was in the hospital. And I would go over and visit her because Ellie couldn't walk too well at that time. And so her mother, Ellie got so she couldn't walk very well at last. We had some steps to go down and a hill to go down.
Right.
And it was just hard to go. And anyway, I visited her, and one day Miss Richmond told me, said, I don't know what I'd do without you, Glenn. You had to come over and see me. But George came over to see her, but he was sick too at the time. Eventually she ended up in the care center, and she was there about a year and died in the care center. And we used to go down and visit her all the time in the care center.
And what was her
So
cause?
she and I were real good friends. When I first went with Ellie, and she thought we might get married, she thought Ellie wouldn't make a very good Catholic. I told her she wouldn't have to be a Catholic. As you get older, religion means a little bit more to you. Because death comes to everyone. So I'm going to die. I hope someday that Matt comes over and finds me dead. I hope that's the way I die. I hope I just die in my sleep. My teeth are getting in bad shape. They're finding things wrong with it. My system is old. My digestive system is old. My breast, everything is old in me. And so they're going to give out some of these things. They got to give out. I can't.
Your mustache is new.
Huh?
Your mustache is young.
Well, that's about a week or 2 weeks old. But everything is old in me and getting older. And one of them is going to break down. The circulatory system, the respiratory system, the digestive. One of those systems is going to break down. If I get so I can't urinate anymore, I'm going to die pretty quick. Because you got the urine. It's going to kill you. If my respiratory don't work, my circulatory. So one of those are going to wear out. One of them. As long as I keep them going, I'll live. But they're getting so old that they're going to be a place where they just can't make it. And I hope that doesn't happen where I linger for 2 or 3 months. I hope I don't linger. I hope it isn't that way. So if I had a heart failure, that's generally pretty sudden.
Now, how does that play into religion?
Well, that makes me think of what is there life after death. And like I say, no one's proved to me there's life after death. There's no proof at all. And I think this. I believe that Jesus Christ lived. I believe that Mohammed lived. I believe that Buddha lived. Brahma lived. And I've studied up on all those religions. And every one of those religions teach things that I approve of. Every one of them. Brahma, which started 1,500 years before Christ, said that his name meant the immortal soul of man. Hell, that's what we've been led to believe for a long time. Mohammed said that Jesus Christ was the Spirit and the Word of God. He said that about Jesus Christ. Now, what happens is Jesus went through his life, and somebody started writing about him, things that weren't true. They said things to him that he didn't say and he didn't do. These people that are putting his book didn't even know him, some of them. They started writing after he did. Muhammad did the same thing. But when they wrote the Quran, they put in there that you should kill your enemies. That was written in there by man, not by Muhammad. Muhammad wouldn't kill men. He said that's one of the mortal sins is killing. And he believed in Jesus Christ. He was really a Christian. But when they wrote the Bible, they put things in here he didn't say and he wouldn't stand for. So the way Islamic practice now, that's not what Obama's the leader said at all. And the Christians aren't what Jesus Christ said. Men wrote this and men put these things in there that aren't true. So I'm saying that every one of those people were great teachers. I could believe in every one of them.
And believe in the same thing. Because
I believe there's one God. I do believe in God. I believe there's one. We just look at it differently, so just look at it differently. Some of them have, but none of them have that real look of that there's only one God. There can only be one. And I say this, that, and you will not agree with me, but did man create God or did God create man? I think God created man. I believe that God created man. I believe it's both true. But what is the truth? The truth is God. God is the truth. And that's the reason I say God is truth. Now we see God's presence in nature. We see it in nature. That's all we can think of. I can see the sun rise. By God, somebody had to put it there. Change the season, somebody had to do that. So I know there's a God. I know there is. That's the most sure thing that there is God. But not the kind of guy that my Bible tells me.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's how you feel about religion now. How did you think of religion when you were in high school or college or coaching or?
Wasn't any part of my life.
It was.
No,
you went on Sundays. I know you went on Sundays.
We all went Sunday. We tripped off to church on Sunday. Mom and Dad would go to Sunday church. We went every Sunday. Sit there and listen to the preacher. Go to confession. We'd go to confession and tell our sins. And then he'd give us some prayers to say and our sins were forgiven. I had to make up lies to tell.
Me too.
But that's such a foolish thing that you go tell a priest that he'll forgive your sins. Hell, maybe the preacher himself said it.
Yeah, a bunch of them are pretty much sinners, yeah. And you knew that when you were young.
Yeah, but I never thought much about it. It never occurred to me. I had to go to church. Finally, at the very last, I would go out and stand back in the vestibule, back in the back end. I wouldn't even go into the church. I'd stand out there the whole time. I didn't go into church. And there'd be about 10 other guys standing out there too. And our parents would go in and kneel down and do all the praying and everything and so on. We sit there, stand on our feet for about an hour. And one day, Jerry was holding one of her grandchildren to come down to church, and she fell, broke both arms. Can you imagine having both arms broken?
And the grandkid was okay?
Wouldn't even wipe your ass. Couldn't even feed yourself.
And the grandkid is okay?
Huh?
And the kid was okay?
The kid was okay, but she broke both arms. Coming out of church.
So much for church.
Yeah. No, religion it's like everything else. It's screwed up. Screwed up. There's a reason for it if we think logically, but you have to take plenty of time to think about it and read about it. I can't hardly believe the Virgin Mary's story, really. If it's true, it's true. But I can't have it. And I don't think he died for sin. Our sins really killed him. I'm sure of that. Because of what he practiced, what he taught, they killed him because of what he taught. And they said he claimed he was God, see? And you're not God, so we're going to put you to death. And I don't know of any place I've ever read in the Bible that he said he was God.
But
That Jesus ever said he was God. I don't read that anywhere in the Bible. There's some places in there where they said, do you believe that you're God? And he said, oh, you say I am. Well, that's about as close as he ever said that. Where'd the Burma, where'd they come? Just like they were Confucius. These guys are all great religious teachers. And they all taught, love your neighbor as yourself. They all taught the same thing.
Which is what it's all about.
They all taught good things. And then men go and write Bibles and put in what they believe, which isn't what the guy believes at all, some of it. It's just counter to what the man actually really was and really believed. It just really is. So, yeah, I can believe there's God. That's one of the strongest beliefs I have right now. And if I couldn't believe that, hell, I might as well die. Because I talk to God all the time. I talk to him all. I think of God as the atmosphere. The atmosphere around you is there all the time. It's here now. It's there. It's everywhere. The atmosphere is everywhere. God is kind of like that. He's not an atmosphere, but he's everywhere. He's there. He has an entity I can't describe what he is like. Nobody knows what God is, what he's like. Nobody. Preachers tell you who God is and what he thinks. How does he know? All he knows is what's been written by somebody else.
What was Mom's take on religion?
Huh?
What was Mom's take on religion?
She was a Presbyterian.
I know.
And when we came to Burlington, we went to the Presbyterian church.
To Burlington?
We went there to get in, but it was so crowded, we couldn't get in.
In Burlington?
Yeah. We couldn't get in. It was cars packed for miles around. So we started home, and we went by Grace Methodist. And there was a parking place. So we went into Grace Methodist. And when we got in there, Mrs. Kelly was a class teacher.
I remember.
And she took you guys into class. When on the way home, Chipper says, if you'll take us to this church, we'll go to church. I said, why? Well, Miss Kelly is the practice teacher. She's from Danville. So we said, okay. So we went there for that reason because Chip liked Miss Kelly.
I didn't know that.
And so we went there all the time. I don't go to church anymore.
But it occupied the same kind of place in Mom's view as it did in yours.
Oh, yeah. Very.
It was kind of a mechanical sort of.
She was pretty religious, Ellie was. I'm sure she... I have a prayer somewhere. Ellie has a prayer. And it's Ellie. It was on her, when she died, this prayer was on there. It said, the light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God looks after me. Wherever God is, I am. Wherever I am, God is. So God is with us every minute of the day. We don't know who he is or what he is, but he's with me right now. I know him, and I can talk to him right now. Mm-hmm. And I believe he'll hear me. And that's the reason I spend probably 4 or 5, at least 3 or 4, I'll take 15, 20 minutes to pray. I have a kind of a system of prayer I use. Every night before I go to bed, I say it. And every morning I get up, I say it. And I'll say it during the day. Mm-hmm. When I'm bored and doing nothing, I'll just say my prayer. So I talk to God all the time now. And that's, the older I get, the more I'll talk to him.
So it's not a particular thing you say. It's that you spend
one of the biggest prayers I say is, let's see, what is now? Our Father who art in heaven, give us this day our daily bread. Give us this day our daily bread. Do you know what that means? What's that mean?
Make today a decent day. Make today a good day.
Well, I play it with this in mind. There's a lot of people suffering in this world today from the hunger and cold and brutality and so on. So when I pray, give us this day our daily bread, what I'm saying, give everybody that needs it their daily bread. Give them what they need to live. Give them what they have to have. So I'm praying that's what to do. I'm not praying for me. I'm praying for those people that don't have what I have. Now, I'll put mine on it. I'll say I've had some problems in my life. Some of them I haven't been accustomed yet. And I'm praying that I can. I got problems. And the richest man in the world has problems. He's got problems. A guy that's greedy has problems with greed. So everybody has problems. The rich man has problems. But I'm praying for everybody that has a problem that he just helps them. But mostly I pray for those people that don't have enough. That's where most of my prayer goes. So that's the biggest prayer I say every night, is for those people that don't have enough to live a decent life. Okay. So it's a prayer for everybody.
Let's switch from religion to golf.
Well, I cheated golf. See, I'm a cheater.
Talk about your
I'm cheated. They say Washington never cheated at golf. Never cheated because he never played golf or paid income tax.
Talk about golf. What intrigued you about golf initially?
Well, it wasn't the playing the golf so much. It was the people I met in the golf. It's really the fellowship. Really.
The social affair.
Yeah, more than anything. Because I wasn't that good a golfer. And I never would get to be a good golfer. But a lot of socialization. I met a lot of people. I started, when I retired, I remember. And we started out with about 4 guys. We ended up with probably about 15 or 16 regulars, and sometimes we'd have 25 guys out there. If a guy come in wanted to play golf, he could come right in and play with us.
And this was weekly?
And he'd give us his handicap, and we'd fit him right in.
This is once a week?
Huh?
Once a week?
Twice a week.
Twice a week?
Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that went on for 7 or 8 years. Then when I put Ellie in the care center, I couldn't do it anymore. And I kept statistics on everybody, how much money they won and so on. And so I turned it over to Kenny Howard, and he took it over. And it began to kind of disintegrate. And within a couple of years, it wasn't there anymore. I play Scrabble with Mrs. Howard twice a week. When Kenny got sick and died, I used to go, he was in the hospital for about a week. I used to go every day and visit him in the hospital. So I was a pretty good friend of Kenny's. And when he died, I thought it'd be good to go over and visit his wife. And so about once a month, I'd go over and visit her for about a half hour. And that went on for probably 5 or 6 months. I just, once or twice a month, I'd go over and see her. And she asked me if I ever played Scrabble. I said, no. She said, would you like to learn? And I said, yeah. So she showed me how to play Scrabble. So I kind of enjoyed the game, and so I got to play Scrabble with her, so we got setting up dates. So we played every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'd go over every Monday and Friday and play a game of Scrabble. Now we've got it down to 2 days, every Tuesday and Thursday. We go over about 2 o'clock and take about 2 hours to play a game of Scrabble. In the wintertime, of course, some days I can't get over there. But every once in a while I cheat a little bit. I have to win sometimes. So now I'm a cheater. I'm a cheater. That's one of the things. I don't really cheat big. Once in a while when I'm drawing a card, if I see a better card than I get, instead of just drawing blindly, I'll pick that up. Didn't very much, but it's a little bit. But sometimes I take over myself, I'm not going to cheat today. And I go over there and I don't cheat at all. It seems like today I don't cheat, I win over time. But sometimes I cheat, I lose. So it shows me I'm more to lose if I cheat than if I win, I think.
We've been going here for a while. What if we take a 10-minute, 15-minute break?
Yeah, let's break.
Most of my writings, a lot of my writings are in here, and a lot of my poems. I often thought of having you put all of them in the book, but I'd have a hard time getting them together.
I'm not sure I could read them all.
Huh?
I'm not sure I could read them all. Well, your handwriting's better than mine.
Well, it's terrible now.
Cody says it's way better. So.
I used to write all right, but
that's legible. Mine's not legible. He couldn't read my writing.
Well, you write with a flair. I don't write with a flair. In fact, I don't write very well at all now.
Well, you print.
Huh?
You're printing.
That looks like mine.
Yeah, it's better printing than my road cursive writing.
Would life turn out how you would have imagined it now, or no?
Would what?
Has life turned out the way you would have thought it would have turned out? Have things turned out the way you expected them to turn out?
Better than I ever expected it.
Yeah,
I never expected to be in the middle class, not the lower middle class. I don't think I'm in the lower middle class. I don't think I'm in the upper middle class. But I didn't expect to. No, I didn't. I'm a lot better off than I thought I'd be. And I'm lucky I had three. I didn't have any children that were handicapped. Some people have children,
right.
And that made a big effect on their life. When you have some, you have to take care of the rest of your life, or one need another.
And basically, generationally, your generation was better off than Les and Grace's generation.
I believe so.
I mean, certainly,
Well,
in a material sense, you were.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. Because Dad was able to have a job all through the Depression. Those that didn't have a job, life was a lot different.
And what was his job through the Depression, in the restaurant, or was it in the railroad?
Oh, it was railroad.
It was railroad.
Mm-hmm. When they went on strike, that was part of the problems.
Right.
Like it is now.
Yep. But that came in and did.
In the 30s, when it really took hold, in 29s, 28, 29.
And he worked all through that time.
Uh-huh.
Which made things okay for you guys. Okay. What's your greatest accomplishment?
Raising 3 boys like you guys. That's mine. And marrying a girl like Ellie. Mm-hmm. Having a wife like Ellie and 3. That's my main accomplishment. I never thought of getting rich or anything like that, or being famous. I never thought anything like that. And I wasn't.
And I understand that because I'm the same way. So. What's been your greatest disappointment?
Ellie not being live a long life with me, living without Ellie, biggest disappointment.
And the biggest.
I didn't have any other disappointments that I know of.
Yeah.
That was my biggest.
But that would be a big one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the most important thing in your life right now?
Well, I'll be sure that you 3 guys are doing well all the time. That's one thing. I'm always concerned about whether it's health or finance or no matter what it is, that you're doing well. And that I don't have to stick around and be real sick for a long time.
And religion is an important factor.
It's probably right now, outside of you 3 boys, religion is probably one of the most important.
If you knew everything that you know now, is there anything you'd have done differently in life?
No,
Nothing.
because I couldn't have done it without some people along the way, without Coach Gene Hall and without Bob Everett and Bob Fields. I couldn't have done it without them.
Right. Okay. If you could do anything that you want to do right now, what would you do?
Die peacefully.
You wouldn't go out and run around the block?
If I could walk again, that'd be the only thing. If I could walk without I can walk without a cane.
Yeah.
But I can't stand. If I could stand and walk like a lot of people do, I see people walking and I think, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
But that would be one thing.
That would be real big.
But I don't ever expect to.
No, I understand. And I see people running down the street, and I say, I wish I could do that now, but my knees don't want me to do that. What's the single most important thing you've learned about life in 92 years?
About what?
Life.
Just a minute, I'll tell you what it is. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can.
Very good. That goes right along with the next question. What would you say is your philosophy of life?
To get along with people. Get along, be friends.
Respect.
Yeah, no, just be friends. I think friendliness is brotherly love. Be friends. Be a friend to everybody you meet.
So the golden rule, effectively.
You can't go wrong in that.
Yeah. Okay. Advice for your grandchildren.
Oh my gosh. Save a little bit of everything you make. For like Social Security, everybody ought to have their own Social Security program. Save a little bit, no matter what you're making, save something. And keep saving much as you can because you don't know what's ahead. Be ready if things aren't quite what they should be.
Prepare for a rainy day.
Be ready.
Okay. What would you tell them about your grandchildren about love and marriage?
Well, be sure you marry the opposite sex.
Okay.
And don't marry too quickly. Be sure you know the person you're marrying. Should have a few arguments with them before you get married.
Did you have arguments with Mom before you got married?
I don't think so.
What advice would you give your grandchildren about how to raise kids?
Well, I don't know how to raise kids, so I can give them advice. I think you ought to do things with them as much as you can. Do things with them. Go to their school functions. Do as much as you can with them. Take part in life. Don't let them just go off and do things away from you.
They sure grow up quick, don't they?
And know where they are as much as you can. Because you can't tell. They might be stealing a car.
Okay.
There's something I don't know.
What's that?
There's something I don't know.
Oh, yeah, there is. Yeah, I'll tell you. Grandma can tell you.
What? You stole a car?
Almost. Almost.
Wait a minute, Grandpa.
Huh?
What did he do?
He had a bunch of guys who want me to tell him?
Yes.
I don't know how old they were, probably 16 years old.
Yeah.
And who was the guy ahead of that? Who was that swimmer?
Charlie Marshall.
He's the problem, I think.
He was the problem.
Charlie Marshall was sort of a leader of that group.
Is that who we're going to blame it on?
He was the sidewinder.
And they were running around town one night, and Charlie said, "Let's steal a car." And the others didn't know where to go along with them. I said, "Oh, I've stolen before." So they were going to steal a car. By that time, the police came along, and they ran and hid, and they didn't steal a car.
We ran off in the Crapo Park, and the cop lights were all over the place. We were hiding in the hills, and they finally went away, and we went home. Yeah.
And I knew nothing about it until the truth will be out. Well, you might as well think the best of everyone. To me, everybody's a good person. If someone is bad, I hope they become better. I just think I think friendliness is a big thing. You just have to be a friend of people, and if the more friends you make, the more satisfaction you have.
And
Because
you're
I can remember John Patrick, and I really like to think about him. I remember Bob Everett's and the things he did. The people I remember the things he did for me. And I feel an awful lot of my times just remembering what people did for Coach Gene Hall, take the trouble to run me up to go to college. I mean, he didn't have to take the trouble to do that, but he did. So there's so many. I just owe so much to so many people that I had nothing to do myself. It just seemed like that fell into place and really affected my life. So
and a lot of good things happened in your life.
More things than I deserve.
But I mean, you always approach life optimistically.
Well,
I mean, I'd say you're an optimist.
well, look at
Because you look on the good side of things.
oh yeah, but look at the good things that happened to me.
I understand, but my question is, did those, to a certain degree, did those good things happen because you tend to look at things in a good light?
Not necessarily. I didn't. Gene Hall. That didn't happen because I made it happen.
No, I didn't say you made it happen, but I mean, you must have done something to impress Gene Hall, or else he wouldn't have grabbed you up and said, "Let's go."
That may be so, but I don't know if I did it intentionally.
I'm sure you didn't do it intentionally.
And Bob Everett, I didn't have him call me. You know, he called me, and it turned out he affected my life tremendously. Mm-hmm. So things happened. That's the reason I think that I'm so fortunate to have those things happen at a time when I needed to happen.
Yep.
I needed a friend like Bob Fields when I moved down here.
Right.
I needed a guy like that.
You'd have had a hard time building that house yourself.
Well, I didn't build a house. I had that built, but he helped me finish a lot of my work, and plus he kind of took me into his business and worked for him. So it kept me busy. I was a busy man, coaching, and all summer I'd be working with him. If when I worked with him, I was doing something else. So other people mean so much. People mean so much to me. Other people do. And I just wonder if I affect them that much. Yeah, I don't think, I'm not aware that I do, but I know a lot of people affect me.
Of course, the people that affected you probably don't know that they affected you that way too.
Probably don't.
Yeah.
Probably don't know it. No, they did it because they wanted to do it.
And that's the right reason.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And I was lucky.
Let's go get something to eat.
Are the crowd still over there?
I don't think so.
Oh, good. I go over there and I can't hear what anybody's saying, and I'm going to get this together.